This is a submission for the STEM Research Challenge about ethics in robotics. I'm Samuel from Habs Orbit based in London, UK. Let's first take a look at what ethics in robotics is. Ethics in robotics is about determining what is right and wrong when designing, using, and interacting with robots. When designing robots, they should always be made such that they maximize the following three principles: honesty, fairness, and responsibility. With that said, robots can and are having a huge positive impact on people's lives when they're designed to follow these rules. But how can we ensure that they're only used for these beneficial purposes? In 1942, the science fiction writer Isaac Asimov set down for the first time his three laws of robotics. Over the years, these laws have influenced not only science fiction, but also real-world robotics, with many people expanding upon them. In 2011, the EPSRC and AHRC from the UK worked together to produce 5 laws for robotics to be used in the real world. While Asimov's rules provided a great starting point, these rules work much better for modern-day real-world robotics that requires stricter ethical guidelines to ensure safety, responsibility, and transparency. Let's address, perhaps currently, the most important ethical consideration in robotics: who is responsible when a robot makes a mistake? To do this, let's look at autopilot car accidents. This is one of the most pressing concerns in the world right now, given how in some countries there are already thousands of these cars driving around the streets with no driver. But who is responsible when one gets into an accident? One answer could be the manufacturer, another could be the company that owns or provides the car, or it could be the driver behind the wheel. The key dilemma here is design flaws versus human error. When a car crashes due to a software flaw, is it the designer's fault or the responsibility of the user? This also raises the question of shared responsibility. Perhaps liability should be divided up based on what went wrong and thus who was at fault. The problem with this in the real world is figuring out exactly what went wrong and what the cause of that was. And currently, we don't have a great way of doing this. But what about the future? To ensure robots continue to be used only to benefit society, stronger regulations and laws must be passed by governments, for example, the EU AI Act. Another thing that needs to be improved is transparency and explainability. Users should be able to understand how robots make their decisions. One important thing that is tricky but also very necessary to get right is balancing automation with human jobs. While automation using robots can make jobs more efficient, it is also important to consider how people's lives will be affected if their job gets replaced. The key takeaway here is that ethical considerations and accountability needs to be considered and built in from the start of a robot's design, not just as an afterthought, which many companies currently view it as. Thank you for listening.